The history of the United States is a long and complex story that begins centuries before the nation itself was formally established. Long before European explorers crossed the Atlantic Ocean, the lands that would become the United States were home to a vast array of indigenous peoples. Archaeological evidence shows that humans were present in North America at least 15,000 years ago, possibly earlier, having migrated from Asia via the Bering Land Bridge. Over time, these peoples developed distinct cultures, languages, and traditions, ranging from the mound-building societies of the Mississippi Valley to the advanced agricultural civilizations of the Southwest, such as the ancestral Pueblones. The diversity of indigenous life was immense, with hundreds of nations spread across the continent, each adapted to their own environments. In the late 15th century, European contact began to reshape the future of this land. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached the Caribbean, opening the way for European exploration and colonization. Spanish explorers pushed into the present-day United States from the south and west, claiming territories in Florida, the Southwest, and California. French explorers traveled down the Mississippi River and established colonies in the interior, while the English established settlements along the Atlantic coast. The first permanent English settlement was founded in 1607 at Jamestown, Virginia. 13 distinct English colonies eventually developed along the eastern seaboard, each with its own economic base, religious traditions, and political structures. Over the next century and a half, these colonies grew in population and economic power, but they also experienced tensions with Britain over issues of governance and taxation. By the mid-18th century, those tensions erupted into open conflict. The French and Indian War, fought from 1754 to 1763, ended with Britain gaining vast territories, but also imposing new taxes and regulations on the colonies to pay war debts. Colonial protests escalated, with events like the Boston Massacre in 1770 and the Boston Tea Party in 1773 fueling resentment. In 1775, fighting broke out between colonial militias and British troops at Lexington and Concord. The following year, the colonies formally declared independence with the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776, authored primarily by Thomas Jefferson. The American Revolutionary War continued until 1783, when the Treaty of Paris recognized the independence of the United States. The new nation faced the challenge of creating a stable government. The Articles of Confederation, its first governing document, proved too weak to address national issues. In 1787, delegates met in Philadelphia to draft the United States Constitution, establishing a stronger federal system with checks and balances among executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The Bill of Rights, ratified in 1791, guaranteed fundamental freedoms such as speech, religion, and due process. In the early 19th century, the United States expanded westward, guided by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that the nation was destined to span the continent. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the nation's size. Lewis and Clark's expedition explored this vast new territory. The War of 1812 against Britain reaffirmed American independence. Further expansion came through treaties, purchases, and wars, including the annexation of Texas and the Mexican-American War, which resulted in the acquisition of California and the Southwest. However, expansion also deepened divisions over slavery. While the northern states moved toward abolition, the southern economy depended on enslaved labor, particularly for cotton production. Political compromises attempted to maintain balance between free and slave states, but tensions grew. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president on an anti-slavery expansion platform, prompting several southern states to secede and form the Confederate States of America. The Civil War began in 1861 and became the bloodiest conflict in U.S. history. After 4 years of fighting, Union forces prevailed in 1865, Slavery was abolished through the 13th Amendment, and the 14th and 15th Amendments guaranteed citizenship and voting rights to formerly enslaved people, although enforcement would remain inconsistent for decades. The late 19th century was marked by Reconstruction, industrialization, and massive immigration. Railroads linked the coasts, cities grew rapidly, and the U.S. emerged as an economic powerhouse. Labor movements arose to address poor working conditions, and political reforms began to take shape.